Okay, so I just saw this thing recently, this video about this. Apparently, there's this employee in Ontario, Canada, a warehouse employee that just started burning things in the warehouse. Just went around with a lighter, just started setting things on fire because he's so outraged, about the crappy pay he makes, and that he says, we need to have a livable wage. And I just think things like this are just going to start becoming more and more common because people are just getting fed up. I'm not advocating violence. I'm not saying, that he's right to do this, but when people have nothing to lose, they become dangerous. And a lot of people are starting to feel like they have nothing left to lose, so they're kind of starting to resort to more violent acts. I don't believe anyone was actually hurt, but you know, I understand the message he's trying to send. I do. Like, I mean, he's just saying we need to be paid. We don't need a society that only benefits the top 1 to 5, 10% of people. We need to benefit everyone, but that's not what's happening in U.S. and Canada. This was in Canada and a lot of the countries. I mean, it's only the top 10% of people really are truly benefited. Everybody else just kind of struggles and suffers, and so it's no wonder why people are starting to snap. But anyways, we'll start the video.
Social media has surfaced of what appears to be inside a warehouse as someone is going around the room starting several fires while talking about their salary.
All you had to do was pay us enough to live.
I came across this local story from Ontario, California that I think should actually be a national story because it could give us a little hint as to the vigilante.
Should have paid us enough to fucking live. We may not get paid enough to fucking live, but these bitches, they're cheap. All you had to do was pay us enough to live. All you had to do was pay us enough to fucking live. All you had to do was pay us enough to live.
All right, so first it's important to note that nobody was hurt, thankfully, and the fire appeared to just be contained to the warehouse itself. I'll get to more details from the local news report from NBC LA that covered this as well. But look, this is the kind of thing that I don't want to predict is going to happen more, but the conditions are right for people to essentially snap and lash back at their employers for how they're being treated. We are in a situation where people can see that the wealthy are getting wealthier, that during the pandemic, billionaires quadrupled their wealth, and I'll get to more data on that in a minute here, while everybody else lost out. And if you continue not addressing the needs of the vast majority of people, the working class, people are going to begin to lash out like this. It should be a warning to those in power, politicians and the billionaires that control them. Things are only going to get worse, not because they should get worse in terms of the reactions like this, fires or whatever it is, but because of just the reality on the ground of what people are feeling and how you are setting people up to snap and react in a way that is ultimately not going to be beneficial to you if you continue propping up this system that is broken in favor of yourselves. Here is the NBC LA report on this.
Tonight, new video on social media has surfaced of what appears to be inside a warehouse as someone is going around the room starting several fires while talking about their salary.
All you had to do was pay us enough to live.
I don't know. I don't know what's going through his head, man.
We caught up with Alex Montero on Wednesday, who says he was working the night this Kimberly-Clark warehouse along Hellman in Ontario caught fire. Montero is stunned to see this video because this person, he says, is his fellow co-worker, Shamil Abdul Karim.
There goes your inventory.
I just got done talking to him. He had just came over and helped me out with my truck. I was 5 doors down from him.
Fire officials say the fire started on Tuesday just after midnight and quickly grew because of the large amount of paper products inside the warehouse that fueled the flames.
They called break, and I went outside, I was sitting in my car, and not even go by, and I heard the alarm.
Oh,
Working
really?
across.
Come on.
It took crews several hours to get the fire under control, even using drones to extinguish the hot spots.
But yeah, I mean, people are just over it. They're just over it. The majority of people, like the 80 to like 90% of the population, you know, we're just kind of considered peons. We don't really have anything. We're just kind of over it. We're over, you know, being treated poorly, being expected to grind and work to the bone, to not even afford a decent life standard. You know, we're not sitting here saying we all want to be millionaires and have giant mansions. You know, that's not the point. The point is we just simply want to be able to live. And the cost of living is so high in many parts of America. I mean, it varies depending on where you are. Some places are a little cheaper, some places are more expensive. But, you know, also with a large influx of immigrants coming in, that's also added to the issue, you know, for competing for jobs and just overall like housing needs. But, you know, people, they're getting fed up. And I don't know how many of these acts of violence that are going to have to happen, you know, for these wealthy top CEO people to just get it. Like, hey, the majority of people are not happy. You guys may be happy up there in your special little club, but nobody else is happy. We're all struggling down here. We're struggling to make ends meet. And again, I'm not saying I'm not saying that, you know, we should resort to acts of violence like this guy did and burn things down. But I mean, sometimes it's like, that's what's going to take. You know, revolutions do happen to try to bring about change, you know, and, you know, revolutions can get very violent and very, very nasty, very quick. So, I don't know. We'll just keep watching.
After all 20 employees inside were evacuated. Moments later, Ontario police arrested Abdul Karim for arson. And tonight, Kimberly Clark says the distribution center was operated by a third-party logistic partner, NFI Industries, and added that a response team has been activated to help relocate impacted workers and minimize customer and consumer impact.
How long have you been working there with the company? About 3 weeks. Yeah. Just started making good money, dude. And they called us, hoping to relocate us to another warehouse. You know? But if anyone else is hired, you know.
All right, so I'm going to get to some reactions to this news, which again reminded me a bit of the reaction to Luigi Mangione. But that employer there, his coworker, says he was making good money. Sounds like he was a truck driver. He was the one that was unloading the truck. So I did do a little search. This is from Glassdoor. So again, these are estimates, averages here. But we can guess that the warehouse worker was maybe making around 37K to 46K,
Which is
while the truck
nothing
driver was
nowadays.
making 60K to 88K. So there's a really good breakdown here. This is FM Smith 319 on TikTok. This is from a year ago.
It's not the overspending, it's the cost of living. Here is a breakdown of the average Gen Z and millennials' cost of living in today's world. So number one is rent. Everyone knows that Gen Z and millennials have to have a roommate. So splitting a 2-bedroom apartment with utilities is around $1,500. If you have a car, a $12,000 to $15,000 used car is still going to run you $400 a month. Car insurance and gas is another $300. Student loan payment, $500. You're going to have groceries for $500. You're going to have personal care, doctor's appointments, hair, gym, about $150, and then cell phone and miscellaneous $150. That's $3,500 a month, which is baseline. Do you know how much $3,500 a month is? $70,000 a year, or $34 an hour. Because after you take out taxes, put $300 for health insurance, and do a healthy $500 401k contribution, that leaves you with $3,500. This is no fun, no savings, no maintenance, no clothes, no kids, no traveling, no vacations, no bachelor parties, no weddings, no funerals, no clothes, no school supplies, nothing. And this is paycheck to paycheck. And on top of it, they're holding $40,000 of student loan debt, a $15,000 car, and if they ever wanted to buy a house with closing costs and the down payments, another $50,000. So they need $105,000. So even if they were somehow able to scrounge up after $70,000 of paycheck to paycheck, $5,000 to go to a concert, to have avocado toast, whatever it is, $5,000 a year, it would take them 20 years to pay off this debt and save up for a house. 20 years of living with the roommate where that rent's going up, and they're making $70,000 a year as a college graduate. The average person in this country makes $50,000. It is not the overspending. It is a cost of living crisis.
And that was a year ago. Things have only gotten more unaffordable since then. I think a lot of people who are well off truly don't understand that a lot of people who are poor or homeless have jobs, but they simply can't afford to live. Meanwhile, you take a look at the average CEO pay compared to the typical worker. This is from the Economic Policy Institute. CEOs paid 281 times as much as typical workers. And look how...
Like, why on earth would they need to be paid that much more? Why on earth?
that number has increased since the 1980s.
So of course they don't care. Of course the rich, the rich bastards. Of course they don't care. They're making bank. They don't even like. They probably don't. They're so rich and have so much money. They probably don't even ever need to look at their bank statements or look at their bank accounts. Like, they're so out of touch with the reality of the majority.
Neoliberalism really took hold. The idea of, or the fact that corporations and the wealthy really began to get involved in politics and push their own people. You see that explosion in the 90s, and it just continued. So you have, this is just income, by the way. We're not even talking about wealth, which is a whole other conversation. But this is why you have reactions. Not like this. This is actually, I want to share this because this goes to the focus on the wealthy. Meanwhile, everything else is insane. This is a great, as Nick Bryan writes, how can satire compete with this?
This deadline that President Trump has set, 8 p.m., has threatened to destroy a civilization. How does an investor process that? Is it a bigger upside risk or downside risk?
Yes, the big question on everybody's mind when Trump threatened to annihilate an entire civilization was, how do investors process this? CNBC is insane, but it's a window into how American politics operates. There is so much focus from general media on the interests of the extreme wealthy, the top 10%, which hold the vast majority of investments. There is so much focus on that and so little focus on everybody else. Is there a CNBC for the working class? Is there a network where they're talking about the interests of the workers and the need to push back against the interests of the wealthy and their employers? No, of course not. Because why would capitalists invest into a network for the working class? They wouldn't. But it shows you how backwards society is when there is so much focus on those at the very, very top of society and so little focus on everybody else. But this gets to the reactions, and I gotta say, I wasn't surprised by a lot of the replies to this news story. Here is a few that I'll share with you. Quoting JFK here, those who make peaceful revolution impossible will make violent revolution inevitable. No excuse for arson, but if someone risks prison just to be heard, something is already broken. This is a quote from Karl Marx in the Civil War in France, 1871, saying the bourgeoisie of the whole world, which looks complacently upon wholesale massacre, is convulsed by horror at the desecration of brick and mortar.
Oh, come on. These ads are killing me.
Listen, I know this is bad, but historically speaking, this has always been the alarm bell. When the society's downtrodden get trampled on and feel like they're drowning, they get angry and violent. This country was literally founded on the concept, pursuit of happiness is fading. Speaking to the Boston Tea Party, which at the time, of course, were viewed as terrorists, these are people who damaged 340 chests of tea, which amounted to over $1,700,000 in today's numbers. So, and this was the start of the revolution, pushing back against the British monarchy. And how do we process the news today of somebody burning down a warehouse? It's important to note to not encourage that kind of act. Live and said people are willing to go to jail to send a message and have nothing to live for. We will see more of this. and worth taking a look at the gap between productivity and typical workers' compensation since 1979. Productivity has increased, while compensation has almost flatlined. Meanwhile, here's the graph. The wealth of the top 12 U.S. billionaires has soared. So this is just the pandemic. Since the pandemic, every single billionaire has increased their wealth massively. So, as inequality.org writes, as of January 1st, 2026, the collective net worth of America's top 12 billionaires now surpasses $2.7 trillion. Their combined wealth has more than quadrupled from $608 billion on March 18th, 2020. Meanwhile, did your wealth quadruple since the pandemic? I'm going to guess no. So when people see this,
It outrages them.
they feel a certain way, which is why this needs to be addressed in a peaceful, political manner. It needs to be addressed through policy, where we are actually listening to and addressing the needs of the vast majority of people.
The issue with that is I don't think peaceful is going to get anything done. I mean, I think peaceful is the better. I mean, it would be nice in an ideal world to go the peaceful route, but it just seems like, you know, acts of violence are the only thing that these people respond to. But I'm going to cut it off here and read the comment next video.